Good evening, you're watching The Buck Stops here and I'm Barkha Dutt. On the program this evening, why is it that till there is a crisis in Jammu and Kashmir, nobody, and that includes the media, pays attention? Is it that the substantive improvement in the ground situation and the decline in militancy has made the government in Delhi complacent? We have seen in the last 48 hours a volatile valley, curfew back in many parts of the valley, and an even more volatile debate on the floor of the House, one that almost led to the Chief Minister breaking down. This after not just the debate around the manner of Afzal Guru's execution, but also after how one young man was killed in the valley in Baramulla. On the program today, we'll be looking at whether the writing on the wall in Jammu and Kashmir is being misread, who's responsible for the widening gap in political rhetoric of Delhi and Srinagar. But first, Zafar Iqbal and Nazir Masoodi bring you a special report from the ground, the story of a state that is perilously close to being back on the brink.
Protests over Afzal Guru's hanging show no sign of ebbing in the Kashmir Valley. Stone pelting and clashes were reported from parts of the valley on Wednesday. Most parts remained under curfew and restrictions. Internet services have been suspended in the Kashmir Valley to contain rumours. Yesterday, a 24-year-old man was killed, allegedly in army firing during a protest in Baramulla. So far, 4 people have been killed in protests since Afzal Guru was hanged on the 9th of February. The Baramulla killing sparked widespread protests in many parts of the valley. Police have registered an FIR in the killing against Army Colonel Dalbinder Singh. The army has denied any role in the killing of Tariq Ahmed, but has said it will get the incident inquired.
Government has once again put most parts of Kashmir under siege by imposing curfew and curfew-like restrictions. Chief Minister Umar Abdullah has justified curfew as a measure to safeguard lives, but critics say that preventive and repressive measures by the government is creating a pressure cooker situation in Kashmir after Afzal Guru's hanging.
As the valley remains hostile, fireworks in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly over the Baramulla killing, with the opposition PDP holding the ruling National Conference responsible for the death. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah got emotional and was speechless for some moments while speaking on the Baramulla killing.
एक ऑनरेबल मेंबर का स्पीकर को ये कहना कि ये आपका बेटा होना चाहिए था, क्या बात है? क्या यही पहुंच गया? क्या यही सब हमने सीखा है? किसी का बेटा नहीं होना चाहिए, मेरे 2 बेटे हैं, किसी के साथ ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए.
But the PDP was scathing in its attack on the Chief Minister.
जब भी लॉ एंड ऑर्डर के मसले में आर्मी इस्तेमाल हो, they are subject to your control, they are subject to your jurisdiction, they are subject to the jurisdiction of the courts of Jammu and Kashmir. आप बेबस नहीं हैं, उमर साहब. लेकिन अगर आप वाकई अपने आप को बेबस समझते हैं, तो फिर मैं भी अपने आप को बेबस समझता हूं. मैं इसी वक्त इस्तीफा चीफ आपकी खिदमत में पेश करता हूं. जिस वक्त चीफ मिनिस्टर अपनी कुर्सी छोड़ेंगे, मेरे इस्तीफे को मंजूर फरमाइए.
The PDP today walked out of the assembly after a heated exchange with the ruling party over the Baramulla killing.
वो हर चीज में भागीदार है, हिस्सेदार है, मगर जब जवाबदेही की बात आती है, when accountability की बात आती है, he behaves like any person on the road, जैसे लेमैन है, जैसे उनके हाथ में कुछ भी नहीं है.
The recent killing has reignited the debate on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in Jammu and Kashmir. The Chief Minister Omar Abdullah says that the AFSPA issue has not been put on the back burner and he will continue to push for repeal from some areas.
जिस आईन की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, जिस सिस्टम की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, उस सिस्टम के तहत आज जिस फौजी ने वो गोली चलाई, उसके खिलाफ कोई कार्रवाई हो ही नहीं सकती। आप लोग क्या समझते हो मैं पागल हूं? अफवाह की रट लगाए जा रहा हूं? मैं तो सियासी फायदे के लिए नहीं कर रहा हूं, इसलिए कर रहा हूं क्योंकि मैं देखता हूं उस कानून का गलत इस्तेमाल कहां पे होता है।
His party put the blame for the controversial act on the PDP.
Mr. Mufti was instrumental in applying the Afsaba in the Jammu and Kashmir.
The army has all along resisted any move to repeal or dilute the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. It says that army soldiers need legal cover to function in disturbed areas. An NDTV report by Zafar Iqbal and Nazir Masoodi.
So there's curfew again in the Kashmir Valley and volatile politics being debated on the floor of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. In the midst of this, there is anger on the streets and there are protests. The question on the buck stops here today is this. The Chief Minister breaks down in the Assembly saying that nobody is actually paying attention to many of his statements, including those on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Why is there a widening gap in the political rhetoric of Srinagar and Delhi? Why is it that what the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly is debating is something that is not on the national agenda of mainstream politics? And has the writing on the wall for Jammu and Kashmir been misread in the last 2 years, which have seen other signs of seeming normalcy, or if you don't like the word normalcy, at least an improvement in the ground situation with a substantive decline in militancy? Where does the buck stop for not being able to build on the gains of this improved security situation? Let's introduce our panel this evening. We're joined by Mehboob Beg, Member of Parliament from the National Conference. We're also joined by Dr. Sameer Kaul. He's, of course, a spokesperson for Mehbooba Mufti's People's Democratic Party, the PDP. We're joined today from Chandigarh by Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal. He's served as the Northern Army Commander in Jammu and Kashmir. And we are joined from Mumbai tonight by Tavleen Singh, well-known columnist and commentator who has spent an enormous amount of her journalistic years focusing on the state of Jammu and Kashmir as well. And from Srinagar tonight by Sajjad Lone, the chairman of the People's Conference Party. Mehboob Beg, I'd like to start by asking you that when the Chief Minister actually says on the floor of the Assembly, virtually and almost in tears, that he's unable to that he's unable to really do anything about the fact that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has not been repealed or not been amended, and his opposition turns around and says, well, if you're helpless, then why are you Chief Minister? What would the National Conference say to that?
No, Barkat, you will have to put everything in a proper context. The problem is that at national level, let me be very honest, both Congress as well as BJP, there is a problem with understanding of Jammu and Kashmir, as you also wrote in Hindustan Times. That's exactly the situation and the position. You can't pick up one issue and seek an answer for me. You have to put the entire thing. Entire thing is that unfortunately, whenever Kashmir goes on boil, entire attention of the nation moves towards this. If you remember in 2010, there was an all-party delegation and everything. Interlocutors were put in place, they were nominated. And I have forgotten the names of the committees, even the working groups which were nominated by the Prime Minister. Unfortunately, whenever there is little peace, a fragile peace or whatever peace you call it, and then we just keep it under the carpet and Government of India forgets about it. That has been very unfortunate about
Mehboob Beg, I agree with the points you've made, but whose fault is this? Whose fault is it that we have not been able as a country to build substantively on the gains and the improvement in the security situation? Doesn't the ruling party in Jammu and Kashmir take some share of that responsibility?
No, Barkha, let me see like this. It has to be addressed, the basic political alienation. You know, it was only mighty Government of India and Government of Pakistan during General Musharraf's time, and both Mr. Vajpayee as well as Dr. Manmohan Singh ji, they were engaged in talks, and there was a definite change in Kashmir situation. But unfortunately, both parties look at it electorally, let me tell you, because this being an election year, you know the way they handled Afzal Guru, even not only in Jammu and Kashmir, but I think many people in the entire country, even Prime Minister is on record to have said that it has been mishandled. So everything, if you put together, that makes the situation worse. Because even in Afzal Guru's...
Yes, I'll come back to the case of Afzal Guru, Mr. Beg. But Tavleen Singh, do you accept the argument being made here that in a sense there is a problem that every central government and large chunks of even our national media only focus on Jammu and Kashmir when there's a crisis, when there's violence on the streets, when somebody dies, when there's some sort of volatile meltdown on the floor of the assembly there, that otherwise it goes on the back burner, it's not top of the mind, and that no chief minister, whether from the National Conference, the PDP or any other party in the state, can do very much because it's up to the central governments to really push forth the engine of peace in the state?
Yeah, you know, that's partly true, Barkha. But forgive me, I've got something wrong with my throat, so I sound a bit strange today. You see, it's also the governments that get elected in Srinagar that forget about the problem. You know, this is not a political problem that you can only address when the fires start to burn. This is something that over a period of time should have been addressed and has not been. So it's as much the fault of Srinagar as it is of Delhi, that for instance AFSPA still exists. And you know, AFSPA, we talk a lot about economic reform these days. We should be talking about political reform, because AFSPA has no place, in my view, in India as it is today with 300 news channels. You know, it's a ridiculous law which should have been, you know, abolished a long time ago, because not just out of human rights concerns, but out of strategy. But we don't hear this kind of thing from the elected representatives of Kashmir until there's a crisis.